All right, so today we're diving into the vibrant world of Spanish music, and wow, are we in for a treat?
Yeah, it's a real journey through time, this one.
We're talking about like centuries of musical evolution, which is amazing to think about.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's really cool is that we have this fantastic article to guide us through it all. The Evolution of Music in Spain
Right.
by Javier Reyes.
Yeah, this deep dive is going to be packed with those key moments and, those surprising little details that make Spanish music so special.
Absolutely. And since you're interested in getting up to speed, we'll focus on the highlights of each era.
Perfect. So Javier Reyes, he starts way back in the medieval period, and you
Yeah.
get this already. It's like a melting pot of cultures in Spain, Christian, Jewish, Moorish traditions, all kind of mixing it up.
It's true, and you can hear that fusion so clearly in the music, especially in the Cantigas de Santa Maria. These devotional songs, they were dedicated to the Virgin Mary.
Oh, wow.
But they weren't just religious pieces. They were like this incredible blend of musical styles. You had elements of Christian hymns mixed with Moorish melodies. It's fascinating.
So it's like the original fusion music way before that was even a thing.
Exactly. It shows how music has always been this bridge between cultures.
That's incredible. So from this fusion of cultures, we move into the Renaissance and Baroque periods, and Javier Reyes points out this is where Spanish music gets really interesting in terms of complexity.
Yeah, this is when we start to see the emergence of polyphonic music. Imagine like a choir, where each voice has its own independent melody, and they all weave together.
Oh, wow.
That's polyphony in a nutshell.
It sounds almost orchestral, like layers upon layers of sound.
Exactly, and composers like Tomás Luis de Victoria and Francisco Guerrero, they were masters of this style.
Wow.
They mainly focused on sacred music, and their works are still performed today, which is amazing.
It is amazing to think about, music from that long ago still connecting with people today.
It really is.
But speaking of unique musical experiences, I came across this term while I was prepping for our deep dive, zarzuela. It
Yes.
sounds so intriguing. What is it?
Okay, so imagine this. You've got a stage production with opera singers and actors, and they're like going back and forth between these beautiful arias and spoken dialogue. It's all part of the story.
So it's like opera meets theater.
Exactly, a true spectacle. And again, we see this theme of Spanish artists blending different art forms together.
It sounds incredible, like something you'd have to see to fully grasp.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes me want to hop on a plane right now.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about another period in Spanish music that's full of passion and drama, the 18th to 20th centuries. This is when classical music really takes center stage with figures like Boccherini and Fahala.
Yes, and this is also when the Romantic movement swept across Europe, and it had a huge impact on music everywhere.
So in Spain, did Romanticism manifest differently in the music compared to the rest of Europe?
That's a great question. So while it shared the same kind of core ideas as the broader movement, this emphasis on emotions and dramatic melodies, Spanish Romanticism had this unique intensity and expressiveness that's very Spanish.
I could see that.
You can really hear it in the ballads of Raphael, for example.
Yeah.
His music is just so deeply emotional and captivating. It's like the essence of Romanticism distilled.
It's amazing how a whole artistic movement can be like channeled through music.
It really is, but it wasn't just about these grand orchestral pieces. This era also saw the rise of distinct regional music styles. And perhaps the most iconic example is flamenco.
Ah, flamenco. Of course, you can't talk about passionate music without mentioning flamenco. Those rhythms, the intricate footwork, the raw emotion in the singing, it's mesmerizing.
And what's fascinating about flamenco is its origin story. It comes from Andalusia in southern Spain, and it really reflects the soul of that region. It's about expressing this whole spectrum of emotions, joy, sorrow, anger, love, all through music and dance.
And it's incredible how a regional sound like that can become so globally recognized. I mean, flamenco has truly transcended borders.
It's universal.
Totally. And speaking of transcending borders, Javier Reyes talks about this one flamenco guitarist who really pushed the boundaries of the genre.
You must mean Paco de Lucia.
Yes, exactly. He's considered a legend, but what I find so interesting is his focus on innovation.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't content with just mastering the traditional flamenco style. Paco de Lucia wanted to experiment, like see how far he could push those boundaries.
Right.
So he started incorporating elements of jazz and classical music into his compositions.
It's like he created this whole new musical language, but without losing that core flamenco spirit.
Exactly.
I actually read somewhere that Miles Davis was a huge fan of Paco de Lucia's work.
Oh, yeah. He was a big admirer.
Yeah.
I think Miles Davis once said that Paco de Lucia was like a pinpoint of fire, which is pretty high praise coming from one innovator to another.
Wow, that's quite the compliment. Okay, so moving on. I'm curious about this other genre that Javier Reyes mentions, the yeye movement. Even the name sounds like a fusion of cultures.
It was a really interesting time. So picture this. It's the 1960s. British and American rock and roll was like sweeping the globe.
Hmm.
And Spain's no exception. Yeye was basically Spain's answer to this rock and pop explosion. They took those influences and gave it their own unique twist.
So it wasn't just a carbon copy of what was happening in the UK or the US?
No, not at all. It was distinctly Spanish,
Hmm.
and one of the biggest stars to come out of that era was Maciel,
Wait, Maciel, the Eurovision winner?
the one and only.
Oh, wow.
She represented Spain in the Eurovision Song Contest back in 1968 with her song La La La, and she won.
I remember that song.
It became a massive international hit.
I can't believe I didn't realize that was Maciel. That's amazing.
It was a big moment for Spanish music.
It really was. Okay, so let's bring it to the present day. Spanish music is now a global phenomenon.
Absolutely.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's gone from these amazing regional styles to influencing musical trends all over the world.
It's true. And when you look at genres like reggaeton and Latin pop, which are dominating the charts worldwide, you can definitely hear the influence of Spanish music, the rhythms, the language, the energy.
And here's where it gets even more interesting, because these genres, they're not just about catchy beats. They represent this really cool cultural fusion that's connecting with people on a global scale.
Yeah.
You have artists like Rosalia and Enrique Iglesias who are drawing from traditional Spanish, sounds like flamenco, but they're blending them with contemporary pop and electronic music.
It's like they're taking the richness of Spanish musical history and introducing it to a whole new generation. So what about the classical music scene in Spain today? Is it still evolving?
Oh, absolutely. There's a new generation of composers who are taking inspiration from the greats, like De Falla and Granados, but they're also adding their own modern touches to it, creating something totally new and exciting.
It really shows how much Spanish music is always evolving, always pushing those creative boundaries.
Exactly. It's a living tradition, and I think that's what makes it so exciting.
This deep dive has been such a journey. We've covered so much ground from those medieval chants to the global sounds of today. It really makes you think about how much history and culture is packed into the music we listen to.
It really does. And for anyone listening, I encourage you to keep exploring. Check out the artists we talked about. Dive into the genres that pique your interest. You might be surprised at what you discover.
Such a great point to end on. So a huge thank you to Javier Reyes for his amazing article, The Evolution of Music in Spain. We'll be sure to link to it in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn more.
Definitely worth a read.
And to you, our listener, thank you so much for joining us on this sonic adventure. Until next time.